former slave owners, will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood.
It's yours, my life is yours, my heart is yours, my life is yours. I gotta open, I gotta open.
I just want to do God's will.
I gotta open, I gotta open. I need to hear
that out of many we are one, that while we breathe, we hope, and where we are met with cynicism and doubt, and those who tell us that we can't, we will respond with that timeless creed that sums up the spirit of a people. Yes, we can.
I still have a dream.
Thank you so much. I just have to say I lost it because you're sitting here with this woman that the scene took place, you know what I'm saying? And I never thought in my wildest dreams that God would place me in her presence, keep her alive, for me to see that. And so as I'm sitting here, I'm saying, wow, it's crazy. I never started a speech like this. Thank God. I just thank God. I just want to say to my son in front of everybody here, this is Men's Day. I love you. You know that. All right? Father tells you that. I know you think it's corny now, but you know what? 10 years from now, you're going to get it. You're going to say, my father, he wasn't a punk. He said, I love you in front of everybody. And I did. And you got to give me $20 for saying it. No, I'm just kidding. Let me start off with my thank yous. Reverend Jones, thank you so much for opening up this building to me. Bethel, everybody here at Bethel, thank you so much. Thank you so much. The men of Bethel, the young brothers that were standing here, I thank all of you. Just seeing that makes me, as a father, say, my son can do that. It's not the pants hanging low, even though I had to pull his up before we came here. It's not going to be like that all the time. So, young brothers, thank you. Queen Mother, if I started talking about you, we would be here all night. But I can say this one thing. You need to call my mother, because my mother won't slow down once she heard your story. Because when I told her you were 100 years old, when I came to your birthday a year ago, she said, she's 100 and my mother's turning 80. She said, well, that means I got a lot of stuff to do on my hands. I said, Ma, you can't keep up with her. Yes, I can. And with God, you can do everything. So my mother's trying to do everything. She actually did a solo in church. My mother never sang in church before. She did a solo in church. Mom, what you singing solos for? I can do it. If Amelia Boynton Robinson's doing stuff at 100, I can do it at 80. She took a group of kids to the movie theater. My mother hasn't been to a movie theater since I was 5 years old. This is a true story. I said, why are you doing it? You got to help. You said Dr. Robinson doing things. I got time. So please call my mother and tell her to slow down, because she's going to kill herself trying to keep up with you. And of course, Chief Frazier, where you at, Chief? Chief, I thank you so much. The first time we spoke, he explained the film better than what I could ever imagine. When we got off the phone, I said, Reggie, something's going on here. And I remember crying at my computer. Actually, he left a message. He left a voicemail message for me. And I listened to this message, and I sat there and said to myself, wow, this thing is really affecting people. So we'll go back in time, and I'm not going to hold up too much of your time, because I really understand no matter how great a speaker is, I'm not saying I'm great, but no matter how great a speaker is, usually at about 30 minutes, 35 minutes, I don't care how funny they are, you get tired. You start looking at your watch, you start thinking about dinner, Sunday dinner, and all kind of stuff. So I'm going to keep my comments brief. But the question I'm asked most of the time is, what was your inspiration behind the film? And I can tell you, the night of the election, I sat there. And I remember, Isaiah, I'm going to put you on blast again. That's my son, Isaiah, in the front row. I'm going to put him on blast again by saying I allowed him to stay up and watch this moment. He fell asleep. All right? But anyway, I sat there and I watched this and I said, is this real? And I remember students coming to my office. I taught for 17 years. I remember students coming to my office saying, Mr. Bullock, you ever think there'll be a black president? And secretly, I did not. I didn't have those dreams. I didn't dream that far. That shows you how small-minded I was. I'm supposed to be the role model. I'm supposed to be the dream builder for kids. And yet, in my mind, because of the way our country had gone, and it was too soon, I said, it may happen, but it's not going to happen in my lifetime or in your lifetime. And so I sat there. I would always look at them with that look in my eye. I would never tell them no, because I know I would have some black mother that would come in, don't you be crushing my kids' dream. I said, no, don't tell them that, you're going to get in trouble. So what I would say is, well, I mean, it could be, it might be. What that meant, if they sort of look in my eyes, no, it ain't going to ever happen. So that night when it happened, I can remember sitting there saying, this is real. I don't believe, it really was like a dream. For most of you, you know, if you go back less than 4 years ago, you go back, you can say, I still, and even now, sometimes I go, is this real? Did I die or something? This is real, nobody told me, wake up, you're in heaven, there's a black president? So anyway, I called my mother, and my mother being my mother, black woman, 74, 75 at the time, I said, Mom, can you believe this? What do you think? I wanted to get her feelings. This woman was black, grew up in Jim Crow era, was born in 1933, grew up in North Carolina. She knew what the whole thing was. The first thing out of her mouth, she said, you know, I didn't like Michelle Obama's shoes. She could have picked a different selection of shoes. I said, Ma, out of all of this is the biggest moment in black history. Well, they look like prom shoes. I don't really like them. They look like... I said, Ma, this is the biggest moment in black history. What? No, it is. It's, you know, it's all God. It's all God. Now, if you know my mother says it's all God for everything. If she comes in and turns the lights on, lights come on, praise God, lights came on. I said, Ma, have you ever been late on a bill? No, but God don't have to turn them lights on. Hurricane knock out all the lights. Bills could be paid. Hurricane could come along and take everything out. And so I called my Aunt Bernie. She's a couple years younger than my mother. She's about 71 years old. And she says, I didn't like Michelle's dress. So I'm saying, Aunt Bernie, you and Ma, I can't believe. So finally I called my other aunt, the third sister, my Aunt Teen. She's the intellectual. Now, she's not going to tell me anything about God or anything like that. She's going to say red states, blue states, Sarah Palin, John McCain. That's what I wanted to hear. I want to hear some intellectual stuff. So I called her, and we talked for about 5 minutes on Sarah Palin. We talked about 5 minutes on Barack Obama, was so smooth. But then my Aunt Teen, who has passed away, said the same exact thing that my mother and my Aunt Bernie said. She said, but you know something? This is all from God. And I said, why do you say that? She said, because we have forgotten our history. If you, with some of the images that you just saw, she said, if we just realize that we were the lowest of the low, we were beaten, we were whipped, just to be able to sit in the front of a bus, just to be able to cross from one bridge to another, we were beaten, killed. You know, little Emmett Till winked at somebody and said, bye, baby, and yet people said, you know, that's worthy of him dying. At 12 years old, you don't say bye, baby, to a white woman. You don't say that. We're going to kill you. And the jury's going to say, that's okay. It's all right. It's all right. We got all the evidence, but too bad. And so my Aunt Teen was saying, we have forgotten. And I said, yeah, the young kids. She said, no, not the young kids. The older people have forgotten. They got comfortable. As soon as the integration took place, they got comfortable. They started thinking about their houses and their cars and all these things they could buy. They got degrees and they got comfortable. They forgot about the struggle. They forgot about church. We attend church. We have more mega churches than any in the history of time, but yet we don't have religion. We don't have spirituality. We don't have any of that sinking in our kids' souls. I was driving here, Chief said, y'all have like 100 churches in just this little town. All right, we have more black churches, more mega churches than anything today. And yet our kids are running wild. Why is that? Is the religion really sinking in? So that was the inspiration. But I want to bring it back to what you guys have done this weekend. We're talking about the torch, passing the torch. And when you talk about young people, the first thing I say to all of us older people about passing the torch is you have to have patience with them. You do, because some of us have forgotten the wild stuff we used to do. I don't want to tell you what I used to do in college. Oh, I don't want to tell you. And I'm glad they didn't have cell phones. They could take pictures. Oh, Lord. I would be in all kind of trouble. And thank God my mother's old enough where she's forgotten all the wild stuff I used to do. All she can remember is that boy was such a good boy. She doesn't remember. I told my mother one time out of anger, because she put me on punishment. I was one of those kids that you could punish me. I wouldn't have been a good slave. I just wouldn't. Master would have killed me, because I was one of those people that my mother is just going to have to kill me. Because I looked at her and I said, you know, Ma, I'm so mad at you right now that one day, I lived in New York City, by the way. One day I'm going to buy up the whole block and kick you and Daddy off the block. And I knew I was going to get a beating. I knew I was going to get a beating. My mother called my father in the room. Reginald, get in here. Get in here. Do you know what Craig just said? He said he was going to buy the whole block and kick us off. I said, oh, wow, I'm going to get the double beating. You know, my father's a big man. So I'm looking at the both of them. They quiet looking at each other. And then all of a sudden they said, ah! And I'm looking like, well, what is so funny? Because in order for you to block the block, that means you're going to go to school and you're going to be the smartest thing going. Go ahead, kick us off the block. And by the way, I hated school at that point. So I'm sitting there saying, something ain't right. They're supposed to beat me right now. And so the little kid laughed at that. That touched me. She said, that was really funny. But when you talk about being patient, sometimes I have to be patient with my son. I have to, because I didn't get it back then. And sometimes I have to have compassion for what he's going through. It's a different time period for them. We want them to pull up their pants, but we didn't have videos. We didn't have the internet showing us how to pull them down constantly. So if we're angry about them using the B word and the N word and all this other stuff, we as adults, we can't tell them to just stop listening to it. You know what we have to do? We have to rise up the way King and everybody did back in the 60s and go down to those stations and shut them down. That's what we have to do as adults. We can't ask a teenager to shut down foul stuff. We can't ask them to do it. I can remember listening to Richard Pryor tapes and secretly. We would do it secretly. As soon as somebody's parents leave, all right, are they going? Did you see there's a car out the driveway? Okay, now you sure they're not coming back? Okay, put it on, put it on, put it on. And somebody would get the record and they would have it on low and your ear would be all the way up to the speaker. What did he say? He said something about the N-word. Okay, that's funny. This is what we would do. I think they're coming back, put it back, but it's got to be in the right spot. My father's going to know that it was taken out. We were listening to it. You know how we used to do it. Today, they don't have to do that. It's on their phones. They don't have to wait until we go. It's on their phones. At school, they can bring phones to school now. So they can listen to it. So it's a different battle. That's why we have to support them. We have to support them. The biggest factor as far as carrying the torch, here are some things that are torch killers. Our egos. This is the biggest thing I've learned about myself over the last 15 years of my life. Egos are horrific. They're out of control. It has always destroyed us. It destroyed us in the 50s, it's destroyed us in the 70s, and it's definitely destroying us today. Our egos. We want to be the lead singer in the choir. We want a record deal. We want fame. We're not worried about doing God's will. We want to be noticed. Why do I know this? Let me tell you how it hit me the other day. And this was a phone call I took 2 days ago. And this hurt me to my heart. One of my former students, about 40 years old, she wrote on a Facebook thing to me, Mr. Bullock, I'm really proud of your success, but you let me down. You really let me down. The only people you seem to be focusing on is successful black people, not somebody like myself. So I wrote her and I said, Jody, call me as soon as possible, because the words I was going to say wasn't going to come out right. They just weren't going to come out right. So I said, you need to call me. So she called me. Hey, how you doing? I'm proud. I said, listen, why did you write that I let you down? She said, well, you're doing these 2 documentaries. You did one on Devin Johnson, who was a wild kid. He was a gangbanger, and now he's a pastor. That's a great story. Your next film, which is coming out tomorrow, you can see it for free on Facebook. The next film is about this woman, Nadine Lee, who was abandoned by her mother in a store. When she was 5 years old, her mother just walked away from her, left her in New York City by herself to fend for herself. She was molested. I don't even want to tell you the other stuff that happened to her. Beaten, held at knife point, all of this stuff that can happen to somebody in their lifetime. Foster home, from foster home to foster home. She grows up to be 6 feet tall. People were making fun of her when she was young. She's beautiful now. 50 years old, looks like she's 27. She